What's going on, guys, and welcome back to episode 314 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, December 4th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and ringing in the holiday season, my favorite month of the year, bar none, hands down. There can be no fucking argument. December and then everything else. We are now, 21 days away from Christmas? I think it's on a Wednesday this year. Actually, I think hashtag falls on Christmas for the first time ever. I think it does. I don't think I've ever done an episode of hashtag on Christmas before. So we'll have to work that out somehow because I'm not sure. I probably will not be recording that day. I can promise you of that. And the day before, I'm usually busy. You know, I do all my fucking wrapping the day before, of course. I have still done barely a quarter of my Christmas shopping, so I gotta get that shit done. But yeah, maybe I'll do it on Monday. I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna shake out. The episode will still probably go up on Wednesday. Even when I record the show in advance, I had some people asking me about last week's show. So first of all, thanks to everyone who sent in their questions in ahead of time for last week's show with Alexis, which was amazing. She thoroughly enjoyed it. She cannot wait to be back on in the hopefully not so distant future. But that was a long episode. It was around 2 hours. We were supposed to record Wrestle Rant Radio for last week for the Thanksgiving episode that same day. We couldn't. We had to leave to go see Frozen right after that because we went so long with the questions. And I would rather, flesh out every question than just cut it short and do like a 45-minute show, which is really what it would have been had we done both shows in the same day. But she really enjoyed herself, so thanks to you guys for your awesome questions. The feedback to the show, got a ton of feedback, so I appreciate that. And hopefully it won't be too long before she's on again. So check that show out if you haven't already. But back to my original point, we recorded that on Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday morning. And again, the day before Thanksgiving isn't really a big issue. The day before Christmas is Christmas Eve, so we might have to record that on like Monday the 23rd. It's going to be a fucking loaded week. Star Wars comes out that same weekend. Still Christmas shopping to do. I'll be going away that weekend, I think, to see Mr. Morrison on the 22nd. For his engagement party, so congrats to him and Molly, his fiancée. It would be amazing to record with Mr. Morrison that day in Massachusetts. Unfortunately, that will likely not be possible. We'll figure something out as it gets closer, but I will be putting up the episode the day of. I always put it up on Wednesdays, even if it goes up at fucking 11:30 like last week's show. The sad thing is that we recorded that show Tuesday morning. I didn't put it up until late Wednesday night because I was so fucking busy and I went out earlier on in the day and it was just, I was going to put it out before I left, but we recorded Wrestle Rant Radio, so it was a busy week and I'm still catching up from things that I missed over the past couple of days and last week. But regardless of what the day is, whether it's a holiday or whatever, hashtag AskGSM, unless I'm really, really busy, which has happened before, the show almost always goes up on Wednesdays, and it has been for the last 2 or 3 years now. And we haven't missed a week in, maybe 4 years since my laptop shit the bed. There was like a 3-week period I couldn't do the show because I didn't have a laptop, and I was at school, and there was no one else's laptop to use. So I had to do work on like the fucking school computers, but I couldn't record on the school computers, recording hashtag AskG. I almost considered it actually, but we're so far off base here. We'll get back to the original point, that being today's video. So again, I apologize for rambling. But if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with a hashtag AskGSM. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. And if I don't get to it, like, for example, Brandon A's question here that I'm about to answer and read off, he sent this in last week, but he may not have known that I already recorded the episode on Tuesday, so he sent it in, I think, late Tuesday or early Wednesday, I don't remember. But he was nice enough to point that out to me after we listened to the episode and realized I didn't answer it. But I will reply to your question if I don't get to it on this show, like if you send it in too late. I'm recording this episode late on Wednesday, like fucking 1 o'clock, which is late for me because usually I like to record a lot earlier than that. I was just busy today catching up from stuff over the weekend, like I said. But usually if I don't get to it, then let me know. Sometimes I skip over questions. Sometimes it's just repetitive, like some stuff I've answered before. That's very rare, though. For the most part, if you send in a question, and usually if I like your tweet or I like the comment on the video or on Facebook, that means that your question will be included. Usually, but sometimes I like it, but I forget to include it because I just look it over and I don't think about it and I don't put it in the document. So if I do that, I apologize. Just point it out to me and I will answer it in the following week's episode. So Brandon A., he sent this in last week. Couldn't get to it, obviously, got sent in too late when we recorded on Tuesday, but here it is nonetheless because it is still timely. His question was, what's up, GSM? Going back to a few weeks ago, you asked me to give you an update on when I finished listening to the Lord of the Rings audiobooks, and I finished literally that same day I sent in the questions. The books are beyond fantastic, in my opinion, but it does take commitment to get through them. I would, however, definitely encourage you to give the movies another try. In terms of wrestling analogies, I think Lord of the Rings does all the wrestling-related things correctly. Fantastic storytelling, amazing heels and baby faces, and a very compelling tweener in the Smeagol Gollum character. Complete escapism into another world, incredible music and soundtrack, emotional moments, and epic promos, especially when it comes to the speeches when the characters are riding off to war. The Return of the King has moments in that evoke similar emotion and payoffs that mirror Avengers Endgame, in my opinion. That's a high praise because I love the Avengers movies, and especially Endgame, my third favorite movie, or my second favorite movie of all time. And that's not a joke. It literally is behind Back to the Future and those three movies. I kind of bunched those three movies into one selection. But anyway, his question goes on here. As someone who has never been a Star Wars fan, now that I have Disney Plus, I plan on legitimately giving Star Wars a try, even though I was completely bored by it at a younger age. I'm committing to watching episodes 4 through 6, and I'll let you know my thoughts after I'm done, and if I'm compelled to continue the saga afterwards. Also, I am one of those people that listens to Christmas music and watches Christmas movies on November 1st, so you can rant and rave all you want. I'll give my explanation next week since I already have written so much thus far without even asking a question. With that being said, my only question this week is this. I assume you are familiar with the recent tier list phenomenon. Actually, I'm not. I have not really seen this too much. But anyway, his question was, since we just had Survivor Series 2019, in your opinion, give me one example of a Survivor Series that goes in each tier. This goes off the traditional tier list setup of S, A, B, C, D, and F. S being the highest tier and stands for super, while the rest correspond to the traditional school grading system for those that don't know. Lastly, happy Thanksgiving. Well, thanks, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well, even though it's belated, but nonetheless. A lot to take in there, but I will give Lord of the Rings another try. Like I said, I have seen the Hobbit, rather. The animated version, I think the actual, real life person movie, whatever, live action movie, I guess is the right word to use. I did see the Hobbit movies. I think I said that a couple weeks ago when you first brought that up. I enjoyed it. I read the book for school, I think when I was in 7th grade maybe, and I liked it. Fun fact for you, as part of an assignment for school, we had to look up what our, not Gollum name, but what our Hobbit name would be. So I typed in the website, what is your Hobbit name? I'm sure the website is still out there even over 10 years later. And I typed in Graham Romina, which is my actual real-life name, of course, as you people know. And it came out as Dudo Goldworthy. And as dumb of a name as that sounds, I thought it was so fucking cool. The Dudo part, not really, but the Goldworthy part I did think was cool. So I used it as a wrestler name for our, imaginary wrestling federation that my brother and I were doing at that point, that we were starting up in our minds and, reenacting in real time. I used that name as my William Regal-like character for the promotion. Dudo Goldworthy. How dumb is that? Like I said, I did watch the first Lord of the Rings movie, I think in high school. And as I said earlier, I was bored by it. But like you said, you were bored by the Star Wars movies when you were a kid. I mean, I wasn't exactly a kid when I saw Lord of the Rings. But listen, if you're willing to give Star Wars another try, a fandom and a saga of movies that is near and dear to my heart, then I am willing to rewatch the Lord of the Rings movies. I only saw the first one, so I can't poop on them without watching the full 3, of course. I probably won't read the books. I just don't have I have a ton of books right here in front of me. The Death of WCW, which I've read before, but I really wanted to reread. I started on it over the summer, just haven't gotten to it just because I'm so fucking busy. I have an Avengers book here, the Hornswoggle autobiography. I bought that about a month and a half ago. I just don't have the time to read books. You said the audiobooks, even then I listen to other stuff throughout the week, so I just don't have the time for it. But I would rewatch the movies. So probably at some point, I'm not sure where they are, maybe on Xfinity, somewhere online, I can rent them, I don't know. I will rewatch them eventually. It is cool to hear that you are rewatching, giving the Star Wars saga another try. I could see why it's not for everyone. I feel like most people, there's some people that don't like either, but you're either a Star Wars guy or girl, to each their own, or a Star Trek guy or girl, or a Star Trek person. I'm obviously more Star Wars. I can't shit on Star Trek. I've seen some of it. It's just not for me. I love the Star Wars stuff, always have since I was in grade school. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the 9th installment. I don't know if it's going to be great. My old roommate from college keeps texting me and tweeting me saying, listen, dude, this movie's going to suck. So I don't exactly have high expectations. I did for the other installments, episodes 7 and 8. I enjoyed them for what they were. I thought 8 was better than 7. A lot of people just universally shit all over that fucking movie. But, yeah, so we'll see. But, yeah, they are on Disney+. I enjoy Disney+. I talked about that last week. It's a great service. And, yeah, Star Wars is cool. And you mentioned the Christmas music stuff. At this point, it doesn't even matter because it's December. But you are far from the only one, my friend, that listens to Christmas music on November 1st. I mean, listen, I am, Alexis, I don't think we mentioned this last week here on the show. I'm in a relationship with a girl whose mom puts up Christmas decorations literally on November 1st. Not just Christmas songs and whatnot. She doesn't blare them throughout the house throughout the month of November, but she does put up her entire decorations in the month of November. While that does annoy me personally, at the same, now not to the point where I'm like pissed off, but like, it's not exactly what I would do, but she has so many fucking decorations. She wants to make the most of them throughout November and December. So I get it. I understand. That is tolerable. And listen, as soon as December 1st hit, I was blaring that fucking Christmas music over the weekend. Even on November 30th, I was driving, and I had, the radio on, and every fucking station had Christmas music on. I'm like, you know what? It's fine, because it's after Thanksgiving. So at this point, it doesn't really matter, obviously. And I said this on my personal Twitter a couple days ago, but my goal currently is to watch at least one Christmas movie throughout the month of December leading up to Christmas. And so far, so good. I know it's only December 4th. I have yet to watch one today. I probably will later when I see Alexis. I watched The Grinch on Sunday. Not the live-action one, the animated one. Not the one from the 60s, but the one that came out last year, which I thought actually was pretty good. It's on Netflix. So, watched that on Sunday. Was that Sunday? Yeah, that was Sunday. Monday, I watched The Polar Express with Alexis, and we also watched Office Christmas Party yesterday, which she actually really liked, and that is a really good movie. I really enjoyed Office Christmas Party. So we watched that yesterday. Today, I'm not sure what we'll be watching. Probably the Santa Claus movie. Not The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. That will be coming up shortly in our list of movies to watch. But the I Am Santa Claus movie with Mick Foley, that documentary he put out. It's on Amazon Prime Video, and I have Amazon Prime, so we'll probably watch it there. It came out about 5 years ago, I think. It's a really, really good movie, and she has never seen it before. I've yet to show it to her, so we'll watch that probably today before NXT and Dynamite. But anyway, I am so far off track. I know that's all a part of your paragraph there. It's not a part of your question. So anyone listening for the questions, I apologize. But as far as Survivor Series go, ranking them from S through F. So I actually put a lot of effort into this question because I thought it was a really good question. And I haven't seen actually this new phenomenon about ranking things from A through F and then S. I have not seen that. I have seen the Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling. I've seen that a fucking million times. And it recently got brought up again because the Bleacher Report WWE account tweeted out about it, and The Rock responded, CM Punk responded, all these other people last week during Thanksgiving. So, what was it? So I have not really seen the, rank this, S, A, B, C, D, F. I have not seen that. But to answer your question, this is what I would do. Starting with We'll start from the bottom and work our way to the top here. So, starting with F, 2 shows I got in mind for you. The 2013 show, honestly, in retrospect, maybe not have been as bad as I've, made it out to be, and as bad as other people have made it out to be, and as bad as I thought it was at the time. But I've always thought it was such a bad show, I can't help but give it anything but an F. The only thing that would give it like a D-, I guess to give it an F would be like everything was bad, and not everything was bad about that show. The opening elimination tag team match with The Shield, and I think it was the Real Americans versus, I want to say the Rhodes Brothers, the Usos, and Rey Mysterio, was a great match when Roman Reigns emerged as the sole survivor. That was a really good opening match. And honestly, Punk and Bryan versus the Wyatt family, we rewatched that about a month ago when Punk came back to WWE, was also a really good match as well. The overall show just sucked. Del Rio and Cena was, who gave a shit? And the main event was so fucking bad. I'm so happy I did not go to that show. I was contemplating it at the time. It just would not have made sense because I went to school in the Boston area at that point. It was my freshman year, but I would have been home by that point because it was Thanksgiving week. It just didn't make enough sense to go, and I'm glad I didn't because the show was terrible. God, that show sucked. So I'm going to give that an F. The 2015 show, kind of in that same category where not everything was awful, but it was a bad enough show where it was bad. It was I remember walking away from Survivor Series 2015. I wasn't there, of course, but I remember, that reminds me of the sign that I saw, TLC 2015, which was also in Boston, that said, Survivor Series 2013 sucked, and it was such a great sign. I still die laughing thinking about it now. But anyway, going back to Survivor Series 2015, Ambrose and Owens was a good match. I think it was Reigns and Del Rio was fine. The Paige and Charlotte match was kind of disappointing. I think they may have had one elimination match on the main card, which was fucking forgettable as shit. I think it was like the League of Nations and New Day versus 5 random guys, like Ryback maybe and some other dudes. Really bad match. Ambrose and Reigns in the main event sucked. Then Sheamus cashed in, which was even worse. So fucking predictable. I was hoping for like an Ambrose heel turn. We didn't get that. I remember being so disappointed by that show. So that gets an F from yours truly. A D, probably the 2010 show. Now, I give it a D because I don't remember hating that show. I remember watching it live. I don't know if I watched the show live. Maybe I didn't. But I remember like being a fan of that time. And also, for full disclosure here, I'm only really including like shows that I've seen every Survivor Series, but I'm not including like the 90s or the 80s or the early 2000s. Some exceptions, but just because I wasn't around for those shows, and yeah, in retrospect, I could say they sucked or not, but I'm kind of sticking to shows that I've seen as a fan. I remember feeling like, wow, this show was really, really good or really, really bad. The 2010 show, I don't really remember being all that bad, but in retrospect, it was not a great show. That was the year where the buy rate, I think, was so bad. Maybe the 2009 show was so bad, and the 2010 show, they didn't know if it was going to happen or not. Maybe that's what it was. But that show was so fucking put together. Like, they had Orton and Barrett in the main event, which was It was a really mediocre main event. No real swerve. Cena got fired. Oh, who gives a shit? They had Edge and Kane for the World Heavyweight Championship, which ended in a fucking, draw. The match was no good, and the finish sucked. The elimination match was so thrown together because bragging rights just happened. So the elimination match was thrown together at, literally the last second from, superstars of SmackDown. Tyler Rex was in the match, which should tell you all you need to know about that match. I think they had Low-Key, but Caval and Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental Championship. I talked about that last week. Good match, but very random. They had some other shit too, but that was a very, nothing I would rewatch now aside from just reviewing it for something, but that was a very show. C, probably the 2017 installment. I thought that was a good show, not great, not as good as the 2016 installment, but it was pretty good. 2017 had that great Brock Lesnar AJ Styles main event. It wasn't actually the main event, it was just a really good match. The main event was that Raw and SmackDown elimination match, which was so disappointing. We've had a lot of disappointing Survivor Series main events in recent years. Have you noticed that? We had, Big Show and Orton in 2013, which was terrible. 2015 had Reigns and Ambrose, disappointing. This year, Sheena, Becky, and Bayley, disappointing. We had 2017, that elimination match. last year we had Bryan and Brock, which was great, and the 2014 one with Team Authority and Team Cena was great. But it's either really hit or miss with the Survivor Series main events in recent years, it seems. But the 2017 show, it was good. I remember, it was all right, and it wasn't a great show. It wasn't a bad show. It was just kind of in the middle, like a C. B, I would give the 2019 installment of Survivor Series. Now, maybe I'm just looking at it through a pair of rose-colored glasses here, but I thought it was a pretty good show. When I enjoyed it for what it was this year, I thought it was one of the better shows they put on in 2019. I thought it was a pretty good pay-per-view. NXT dominated for the most part. The main event wasn't great, but overall the wrestling on that show last Sunday was really, really good. So I'd give it a B. And the main event probably, disqualifies it from being anything higher than like a B- or a B, I would say. A solid B. In the A category, I got two shows. First, the 2005 Survivor Series. I thought, again, I wasn't a fan for that show. I wasn't watching at the time, but I thought it was a really good show watching it back. You had John Cena and Kurt Angle in one of Angle's really last, I was going to say his last big pay-per-view match, and that's not true because he was around in 2006. But he and Cena had a really good match for the WWE Championship. I know they had the big Raw and SmackDown elimination match. It was really, really good. The 2003 show I might also put in this category. That was also a really good show. 2005, I thought was a really good show overall. Some good elimination matches, good, title main events. I forgot the World Heavyweight Championship match was. I know they had Triple H and Ric Flair in that show, Last Man Standing. That was a great match as well. What was the World Heavyweight title match that year? And it was on SmackDown. Who was the world champion back then? Batista, who did he face? Not Eddie. Because I think Eddie had just passed away, or he was going to pass away. I don't remember. I think Batista was in that elimination match, actually. So I don't think the World Heavyweight Championship was defended. But I remember that being a great show. And also in the A category, 2011. Now, not everyone may like this show. I thought it was a great show. I still think it's a great show. It was the last pay-per-view, I think, that WWE did in MSG. Now, they've done other shows, Raw, SmackDowns, live events in MSG, televised live events, but not a pay-per-view since 2011. That was headlined by The Rock and Cena versus Awesome Truth. Not a great match, but it was great to see The Rock back in the ring, and it was a memorable main event. You had Zack Ryder coming out, getting this huge reaction from the New York faithful after John Morrison and Ziggler for the United States Championship. That was a good match, good moment for Ryder. The World Championship match was a lot better than I thought it would be between Big Show and Mark Henry. Yeah, the non-finish was disappointing. The disqualification was kind of lame. But the actual match was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. They had good chemistry back then. Much better than their TLC match the following month. The chairs match, that sucked. But the Survivor Series match, I remember being very good. You also had Punk and Del Rio. Punk beating Del Rio for the WWE Championship on that show to kick off his 434-day reign as champion. I thought that was excellent. You had the elimination match, Team Orton and Team Barrett. I think Team Barrett actually won that one with Barrett and Rhodes as the sole survivors. Cody Rhodes, great match. So yeah, I really liked that show. Even Beth Phoenix and Eve Torres, the Lumberjill match, was also a lot better than it had any right to be, if only for that finish. So that was a really good match too. In the S category, now there probably are other Survivor Series people would put in this slot, but I gotta go with 2002. You can't say anything else but 2002 in the S category. Now, I guess you could say like 98 maybe for the Deadly Games tournament, but I mean like the Survivor Series 02 show cannot go anything less than an S for this question. That show was so fucking good. I think I might have talked about it here on the show previously. I'm sure I have. I reviewed it years ago, and I watch it every single year on the anniversary of the pay-per-view because it's such a good fucking show. The Elimination Chamber main event, the first ever Elimination Chamber match in WWE history. Phenomenal match. In that moment of Shawn Michaels becoming world champion again for the first time in 4.5 years. Yeah, he dropped the title the following month. But the moment itself was unbelievable. It gives me the goosebumps now just talking about it. You had Brock Lesnar getting screwed out of the WWE title by his manager, Paul Heyman. And the 4-minute match that he and Big Show had, Big Show and Lesnar, was a lot better than it had any right to be. It was a really fun 4-minute match. Granted, could have gone longer, but Brock was doing short matches even back then. That was a great moment. You also had, I think, the Guerreros picking up the SmackDown or the WWE Tag Team titles over on the SmackDown side. Really good triple threat tag team elimination match there. No traditional elimination tag team matches on this show, but you didn't really need it. The show was packed. Billy Kidman, Jamie Noble, great Cruiserweight Championship match. You had Trish Stratus and Victoria for the women's championship. Great match as well. I think that was a hardcore match. You had the fucking, I know RJ and I were texting about this a couple weeks ago, and this would be complete throwaway in any other show. But in front of this crowd, it was fucking hot as hell. It was 3-minute warning in Rico versus Jeff Hardy, Bubba Ray Dudley, and Spike Dudley in a 6-man tag team tables match. So fucking random, but it was amazing. When the Dudley boys reunited, like, I cannot tell you how great that moment was. Like, and I wasn't even a fan back then, but like watching it back, I still get goosebumps because it was so fucking cool. The crowd ate it up. They went ape shit for the Dudley boys getting back together. It was so fucking cool. That's such a great show. And then it has to be in the S category. And again, I know he's just spent like 25 minutes talking about one question, and I apologize, but it was well worth it. The average grunt, this is more of a correction on one of his previous questions, but I will mention it anyway because I would like to bring it up. He had mentioned in his comment here for YouTube, he had said, "Goddamn, I can't believe I botched my own question. A couple of weeks ago, I asked you to form a team of 5 underappreciated WWE superstars to go against my team. I said no former world champions, WWE or otherwise. So no WCW, ECW, NWA, TNA, Ring of Honor, or New Japan. And what did I do? I included Rhino, a former ECW and NWA world champion, on my team. Bloody hell. So let's just pretend I didn't say otherwise. So our teams meet the criteria that I made up. For the record, I originally had the masterpiece Chris Masters on my team, but then I swapped him out for Rhino at the last minute because he fit better with the theme of my monster guys. Plus, I just love Rhino in general. I'm a big Rhino fan too. I met him actually earlier this year at WrestleMania Access. Really nice guy. But anyway, his question continues here. Not sure how much Masters replacing Rhino would change your team's chances of winning, but hey, if you want to think up a couple of guys to replace Matt Hardy and Mr. Kennedy / John Morrison, feel free to do so. I won't count WWE, ECW, so if you choose Chavo Guerrero or Ezekiel Jackson, they're all yours. And he laughed there too. But I don't expect you to. I just wanted to acknowledge my own screw-up on my record, and on the record, by the way, of course, I knew you were going to pick Regal as your captain the moment I thought of the question. So I don't remember, I didn't write down what my team was. I actually, listed it off. I rattled it off on the show, and I didn't list it in the document, so I don't remember without listening back. I think my team was Regal, Hardy, Kennedy, Morrison, and no, I said Shelton. I think I said Regal, Hardy, Mr. Kennedy, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin. Or John Morrison as like an alternate. So if I'm taking out Morrison, Kennedy, and Hardy, my team would consist of Regal, MVP, Shelton would stay, Marcus Corvon, who I thought was a former NWA TNA champion. He never was. He should have been. He wasn't. Marcus Corvon to replace Kennedy. And then I said Finlay here. Either Finlay or Carlito. Probably Finlay. I forgot I included Shelton here in my question. So probably Regal, MVP, Shelton, Marcus Corvon, and Finlay to kind of go along with the theme of Regal. And Finlay, I don't think was ever a world champion anywhere. Definitely not WCW as far as I know. Definitely not WWE. Never even won the ECW championship on the WWE version of the brand. He went for it a few times, never won it. So, yeah, that'd be my team. You'd probably still win, obviously, but it's worth a shot. It's worth acknowledging anyway. The next question comes from the Twitterverse from @LavidPortavera. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce your Twitter account, so if it isn't, I apologize, but it's LAVIDPOREVA. Their question was, could Alexa Bliss go back to being a top figure with the likes of Shayna Baszler, Ronda Rousey, Rhea Ripley, and the 4 Horsewomen dominating? Or due to her injuries, is she going to be a great mid-card competitor? She could always go back in the title picture. Yeah, they have Shayna in NXT. Rousey, I mean, you mentioned Rousey, but Rousey's gone. Shayna's still in NXT. So really and Rhea Ripley's in NXT too. So really all you're asking is, could she ever be another champion again, like the top of the division with the 4 Horsewomen around? I mean, she was at the top of the division for 2 years? From, let's say, when she won the championship almost exactly 2 years ago. 3 years ago, actually. I think it was 3 years ago. It might have been today. I think it was 3 years ago today she won her first SmackDown Women's Championship by beating Becky Lynch at TLC. And she was in the title picture consistently for the next 2 years. Up until, she lost that. She won it back. She went to Raw, won the Raw Women's Championship. lost and won that a bunch of times. And then she ended up losing that at SummerSlam and then lost the title match at the following month at pay-per-view, I think Hell in a Cell in September of 2018, and she hasn't been in the title picture since. She's been in the tag team title picture with Nikki Cross, but that's about it. No, I don't think, I mean, yeah, she's been injured a lot, but I think they still see her as a valuable asset to the point where it's not like you're putting your world championship on someone who could be a question mark like a Jeff Hardy. With the women, it's a bit different because the talent pool is smaller. They have a lot of great women, but it's not like, oh, she's hurt, like, let's never put the championship on her again. Like, Sasha Banks has been hurt a lot, too. But I don't think they would never put the championship on her again because, you know, she's a star. Alexa Bliss is also a star. I'm glad they've given her a bit of a break from the main championship picture, but there's no reason, especially on SmackDown, they don't have a lot of depth in that division. They have Nikki, who I don't think is quite at that level yet. She is really good, but she's not quite there yet. The only reason I wouldn't put her back in the SmackDown Women's Championship picture anytime soon is not because we've seen it before. It's because we've seen Alexa and Bayley before. We saw Alexa and Bayley go for the championship. They were feuding over that very title over the summer. So even if the roles are reversed, I have no desire to see Bayley versus Bliss anytime soon. Or even Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks for that matter. So it may be a while before she gets back in the title picture, but it's not because she's injury prone. That might be a factor, but I mean, she won the tag team titles over the summer and she had been injured a bunch by that point. So I don't really think that it doesn't really matter as much for the women unless she has to retire due to the injuries, but she came back on Friday's SmackDown, so I don't think that's going to be the case, obviously, and thankfully not. But no, I think she will be back in the championship picture at some point. May not be until after WrestleMania, but it really is more a matter of when than if, in my opinion, because she is a star. At Jeremy8911, his first question was here, who do you see turning face and who do you see turning heel in WWE in 2020? Damn, that's a good question. Who do I see turning face and heel? I guess Rollins. I mean, I guess that's kind of a bad example because he already kind of is a heel. Slowly but surely, they will cement that turn over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. Face and heel. I could see them turning The Miz back into a heel. I think he's been good as a face, but they have done absolutely nothing with the guy, unfortunately. So I could see them turning him. I feel like The Fiend might have to turn at some point. I mean, the guy's just so popular. He's so popular. They might have to turn him at some point. Daniel Bryan's already back to being a babyface. Orton is kind of already back to being a babyface. AJ, I could see going back to being a babyface because he's so popular. I'm trying to think of other people who could really, I mean, honestly, anyone who could use a turn has already turned. Like Bayley, Banks, Rollins, AJ. They've all turned in 2019. Bobby Roode is a heel again, you know? So, I mean, I'm not really sure. Drew McIntyre, you know what? I'll say Drew McIntyre. I think he's a guy, as I've said many, many times before, could be a breakout babyface if they play their cards right. The guy is great. And they need more top faces on Raw. Samoa Joe, same thing. He's really popular. I could see either him or McIntyre, if not both, going babyface by the end of 2020. Come this time next year, I think it's very likely we see McIntyre and or Joe as babyfaces in WWE. His second question, who do you want to see face John Morrison feud with when he returns? Obviously The Miz would be the number one choice. And it works on many different levels. And I'll write about this in an article, I think, for Bleacher Report on Sunday. I think I'm slated to write about it. But my idea is this. As cool as it would be to see Morrison in NXT for the first time, I think that'd be a great fit. If he wants a lighter schedule and still do movies and stuff like that, NXT might be a good fit for him. Him and Johnny Wrestling versus Johnny Wrestling would be perfect. I mean, Johnny Gargano's out right now, but it'd be perfect. Him and Balor would be cool. But I think him going to SmackDown to feud / team with The Miz would work wonderfully for a few different reasons. One, I think the guy works better as a heel. I think that was pretty evident in his Lucha runs, his Impact runs. Even in WWE, I thought he was always a better heel than a babyface. But you can have him team with The Miz at first as a babyface tag team. He's never going to be a world champion, let's just face it. Like, everyone excited about him returning is great. I'm excited for it. But let's not get false hopes here. Like, he may be a mid-card guy. That's what Shelton should have been. And he's not. The guy's just another fucking random dude on the roster. But still, I mean, I think it would be cool to see him reunite with The Miz. There's history there. His last match was with The Miz. They kind of make up for that. They team as babyfaces, which we didn't get to see the first time around. We did not get to see Morrison and Miz as a babyface tag team. They were always heels. so they can be baby faces. You can either turn them both heel or turn Morrison heel on The Miz or vice versa to kind of play off of Miz writing out Morrison many, many years ago in WWE. And then have them feud over on SmackDown. I think SmackDown needs Morrison more than Raw does, just because there's so many talented people on Raw that already feel directionless, from Buddy Murphy to Andrade to Aleister Black to Drew McIntyre. There's a lot of people they're doing not a ton with at the moment. They have a lot of talented people on Raw and SmackDown too, but SmackDown I feel like needs the depth more. So Morrison on SmackDown to me would be the best possible fit. And the feud with, The Miz would make the most sense, but if it's not him, Sheamus is on his way back. I think, we actually saw that feud 9 years ago in 2010. I think they both need wins, so they may not be the best fit. But maybe Elias off the bat. That's not really someone I want to see him feud with. But like AJ, I think Morrison and AJ, I don't know if we've ever seen that match before. Him and Ricochet rekindling their rivalry from Lucha Underground would be cool, obviously in different roles. But that would mean he'd have to go to Raw. So I want him on SmackDown, but ultimately, who do I want to see him feud with? Gargano would be cool. Rey Mysterio at some point. Ricochet, AJ Styles, The Miz are all people who come to mind. On SmackDown, I think it would be a better landing spot for him. But in terms of matches to be had over there, not a lot of people come to mind. Bray Wyatt, not really. Daniel Bryan would be cool. I don't think we ever got to see more. Did we? Did we ever get to see Morrison and Bryan? I think we did, but briefly. I think they had a triple threat submission count anywhere match back in late 2010 with The Miz. Yeah, with The Miz for the United States Championship. I want to say at Hell in a Cell 2010. I don't know if they ever had a one-on-one match. Maybe they did. I don't remember, but that would be a really cool match to do. But those are a few people I would like to see mix it up with ultimately, in due time. At noob_n_co 1991, their first question was, do you think the 4 horsewomen of WWE have been booked poorly recently? No. They're all champions for them. Becky Lynch is the Raw Women's Champion. Bayley's the SmackDown Women's Champion. Sasha is as close to becoming champion as she could without being the champion because she's closely aligned with Bayley. And Charlotte is always a star on Raw. So, no, they are not being booked poorly at all. If anything, everyone else is being booked poorly because of the 4 horsewomen being in the title picture. I'm not saying it's their fault, but WWE needs to do a better job of booking the other women that aren't named Bayley, Banks, Becky, and Sasha. Sasha Banks, Becky, Bayley, and Charlotte. That's what I meant to say. I think I said Sasha twice. But yeah, they need to do a better job of booking those women and not just the 4 horsewomen. They have stars in them, which is great, but they also need to build up people like Nikki Cross and Lacey Evans and Mandy Rose and Sonya and Ember when she comes back. And on the Raw side, they need to do a better job of building up, Natalya I don't give 2 shits about, but, Nia Jax, who gives a fuck? She sucks. Ruby Riott when she comes back. Sarah Logan just means nothing. Give Liv Morgan a chance. I'm not a big fan of hers, but give her a chance at least. She's done nothing on TV all year. They need to do a better job of booking those women and not just the 4 horsewomen. His second question, when will we see some matches, or will we see some matches for TLC announced next week? I would hope so. The pay-per-view's in 11 days. And they've announced all of 0 matches so far. I'm sure that'll change on SmackDown on Friday. They'll announce Bryan and Bray. But aside from that, what else makes sense? Maybe the New Day versus Rude and Ziggler. But the TLC pay-per-view is usually pretty entertaining. The issue is that this year, no matches are deserving of any stipulation on that show. Even the TLC match, Bryan and Bray, does that make sense as a TLC match to anyone? I don't think so. So I wouldn't do that personally. I just think that'd be dumb. They should do the match, but as a TLC match, is it necessary? Not really. They have to start announcing some matches. They have 1 Raw left until the pay-per-view, and they announced all of 0 matches on Monday's Raw this week. I know they have the internet, they have their fucking YouTube shows, that's great, but come on. Book your fucking shows properly. I know you had a 3-week time window, but do a better job of making us care about this upcoming pay-per-view. Why should I give a shit about it? The pay-per-view's in a week. It's not even they have a few matches, but not the entire card, with Hell in a Cell. They have no matches announced. 0. Goose egg. Nada. Announce some fucking matches. Otherwise, don't do the pay-per-view. There is no reason to have a pay-per-view in December. There's really not. It's a dead month. The Rumble is right around the corner. There is no reason to have a December pay-per-view. The holidays are right around the corner too. Survivor Series just happened. TLC is completely pointless. At RJ_Marceau, my brother Mr. Marceau, his first question, which former NXT superstars had the worst/most underwhelming career on the main roster? It's a good question. I mean, there's a lot more disappointing people that came out of NXT than success stories, unfortunately. I think to lead the list has got to be the Ascension. I mean, not to say I ever really had high hopes for them, but NXT did a decent job of booking them. I mean, they never really had one truly above-average match in NXT. But, I mean, they were tag team champions for a year. They got called up. They were buried literally from the get-go. They went maybe undefeated for a month, and they got beat soon after. They never got over. The main roster never gave them a chance to get over, and they've done nothing in the past 5 years. I'd be shocked if they weren't already released. I know they're still technically under contract, but like Primo and Epico, they've just not appeared on TV at all in 2019, at least since WrestleMania weekend. I remember seeing them on the main event taping the night after WrestleMania, but aside from that, I have not seen them at all. So, not even on main event, not even house shows. I don't even know where the fuck they are. So, the Ascension have got to be the worst call-up ever. They're just not exciting. They make me change the channel. And they had a pretty good run in NXT. I mean, they were there for a few years. They were NXT Tag Team Champions for a long time, a record that still stands today. No one else has held that championship. I mean, consecutively, no. Collectively, yes. The Undisputed Era, I'm sure, have beaten their record by now with the amount of days they've held those tag team titles. But in a singular reign, no one has had a longer reign than the Ascension in NXT as tag team champions. So it's got to be the Ascension. Summer Rae never really had that great of a main roster run. She was with Fandango for a while. That dissolved after a while. She did her own thing with Rusev. That was terrible. She was never really all that good. So maybe Summer Rae. Emma never really had a chance to get over, but she had the evil Emma stuff for a while, so I mean, it wasn't terrible. She just never won anything, including in NXT. Bo Dallas, I mean, at least the guy's a former tag team champion, so he had the Beast team stuff going for him, and they tried pushing him and just never worked. Adam Rose had a completely forgettable run. I mean, the guy was in the WWE in the main roster for 2 years, never did jack shit. Never got over, never really had a chance to get over. It was promoted terribly. I was a fan of the character in NXT. I was a fucking Rosebud. You can ask RJ. That's when we started doing our show together. But he fell off the face of the earth. So Adam Rose, the Ascension, Bo Dallas to a certain extent. Who was the other people? Summer Rae, maybe Emma, but definitely Ascension. I think I've got to lead that list because I cannot think of one memorable match they've had on the main roster in 5 years. Adam Rose was at least there for 2 years. The Ascension have been on the main roster for 5 years this month and have done nothing in that time. That really speaks volumes. Let's see. His second question here. Does NXT have too many good women's wrestlers? I mean, I guess, but it's a good problem to have. Chris Statlander, who you've seen recently on AEW Dark and Dynamite, was rumored to be NXT bound, and she probably is signing with AEW. I mean, as great as an addition as she would be to the NXT women's division, they already have a lot of women they're already not doing enough with, you know? They signed impressive Indy Hartwell, who I talked about a couple weeks ago, who's really, really good. She has yet to debut on TV. They have Santana Garrett, who debuted on TV. She lost, but they haven't done anything with her yet. They still have Chelsea Green, Deonna Purrazzo, waiting in the wings. Toni Storm has yet to debut on NXT TV proper, aside from TakeOver. Or no, was she in TakeOver, the Women's War Games match? No, but she was at Survivor Series. But she's on her way in probably at some point. So they have a lot of, they have too many good women's wrestlers, but it's a good problem to have. And at least it's not like they have too many good women's wrestlers that they're not doing anything with. Yeah, with Chelsea Green, but they haven't even brought her up to TV. At least the people that are on TV, they are doing enough with them. And really, they're going to use those women at some point. They're going to need Chelsea Green and Purrazzo when they call up Rhea Ripley and, Dakota Kai, Tegan Nox, and Baszler. Like, when those women leave, they're going to need people to fill their spots. And Chelsea Green, Purrazzo, Santana, Indy Hartwell are all going to fill those roles very well. Toni Storm, so... Yeah, it's a good problem to have. It's not a negative, I would say, really at all. At Iwagu91 here, their first question was, do you think that Adam Cole is the NXT Superstar of the Year? I do. Honestly, I don't think he's just the Superstar of the Year for NXT. I think he's the Superstar of the Year overall. Now, you can vote in my 2019 WWE/NXT Year in Review Awards right now on nextairwrestling.net. Don't let my opinion sway your voting here. The polls have been up for a few days now. Since early Monday. And I have Adam Cole listed in the rankings there. I think he's the best superstar of the year for WWE. Rollins, Yeah, I mean, accomplishment-wise, he was Raw Tag Team Champion for a month, the Universal Champion twice, beat Brock Lesnar twice, held the championship for the better part of the year. But the guy is just, I mean, the dynamic with the crowd has really fell off the face of the fucking earth since January. From January to December, no one has had a worse relationship with the fans in 2019 than him. So it's hard to really say that he's the superstar of the year. Becky Lynch, yeah, but she's kind of cooled off. She's been champion since WrestleMania. So, I mean, I guess you could say Becky. People were saying Becky last year, and she only really got hot in the last couple months of last year, so I wouldn't really say she was the superstar of the year for 2018. This year, yeah, she's been Raw Women's Champion since WrestleMania. She's beaten Ronda Rousey. She pinned her at WrestleMania. She's beaten Charlotte. She's beaten Sasha. She's beaten Bayley. She's beaten Natalya, Lacey Evans, and all these other women in that time. She won not the first ever, but the second ever Women's Royal Rumble match. So yeah, if not Beck, I would say Adam Cole. I mean, I think Adam Cole's had the best year out of anyone, match-wise, character-wise, still very popular. He had that amazing match with Johnny back in New York, won the NXT Championship at TakeOver 25 when I was there in June in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Another amazing match with Johnny. All of Undisputed Era are currently champions. He had another great match with Johnny in Toronto. Other good matches include with Matt Riddle on NXT TV back in October. A good match with Dominik Dijakovic just a couple of weeks ago, a ladder match. He had a great match with even Jordan Miles before he left the company. His last match in NXT was with Adam Cole for the NXT Championship. Good match. He successfully defended the championship against Daniel Bryan on SmackDown in early November. Fantastic match. A good match with Rollins on Raw, main evented then as well. Had a great match with Pete Dunne at Survivor Series. Stole the show. Successfully retained his title then. Didn't win War Games, but had a great match. Had another really good match in the main event of War Games. So I would say Adam Cole. I would say without a doubt Adam Cole has shined anywhere he has been. NXT, Raw, SmackDown, you name it, he has shined. So in my opinion, Adam Cole, not only the superstar of the year for NXT, but all of WWE on the whole as well. His next question here. Considering that Batista cited Shawn Michaels as being selfish and egotistical for retiring Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24 during their feud in 2008, despite Ric Flair wanting Shawn Michaels to not hold back in their match, regardless of the stipulations, shouldn't Batista have turned heel? Yeah, in storyline, he should have turned heel. I remember that feud very fondly because that was when I started watching WWE, when I started watching wrestling. It made no sense to have Batista be a babyface. He was kind of being a baby about the whole thing. No pun intended, babyface. Because he was crying that Shawn Michaels retired Ric Flair, even though it was Ric Flair's wishes to have him retire him. It made no sense. Everyone involved in that feud everyone was a babyface. Isn't that weird? Like, Ric Flair was a babyface. Shawn Michaels was a babyface when he retired. And Batista was a babyface. Even Jericho got involved early on and was a babyface. And obviously that changed to Batista Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. And Jericho had a great heel run after that. But during that feud that you're talking about, he was a babyface. So it was weird, but they just really wanted something for Batista to do before he went to Raw that summer, and that was really the only, feud that made sense, even though it was interpromotional. And they didn't want to turn him because they wanted to have him be the top babyface on Raw later that year, so I get it. But yeah, in a perfect world, he would have gone heel because, first of all, he's a better heel anyway. Second of all, it just would have made sense with the story that he would have gotten pissed at Michaels and went heel. He was acting heelish anyway. Michaels did nothing wrong, so yeah, I completely agree. His third question here. Do you think that Dominic, Rey Mysterio's son, will be a perpetual babyface like his father has been throughout his career? Listen, no one will ever be a bigger babyface than Rey Mysterio, but he could come close because he is Rey Mysterio's son. What we've seen from Dominic so far, the guys look great. I said guy because the kid's 22 years old. He's around my age, He's not a kid anymore. I know Jerry Lawler was like, oh, it's a teenager. He's a teenage boy. Like, no, he's not. He's 22 years old. I would hope if I go in the ring and get my ass kicked, they're not saying, oh my God, look at this kid getting his ass kicked. Kid in terms of the other guys in the ring, I am relatively younger compared to the other superstars, but I'm 24 years old. Did I say 25? I meant 24. I'm not a kid. Yeah, compared to the other people I am, but I'm not a teenager, that's for sure. I haven't been in at least 5 years, and same thing with Dominic. Yeah, he would be a really good babyface because he has the Rey Mysterio vibe, and he put off. He did a great 619 at Survivor Series and a great splash too. So if he's anything like his father, he will be a really good babyface, and hopefully the crowd won't turn on him the same way they did like David Flair back in the day and people like that because they didn't live up to their father's legacy. But he could come close because he is Rey Mysterio's son, and what we've seen from him so far, people feel like they know Dominic because they've seen him for months now. He's been on WWE TV like all year long with Rey Mysterio. He was on TV that one time on an episode of SmackDown in 2010. He had that whole storyline with Eddie and Rey in 2005. So people feel like they've grown up with Dominic in WWE, you know? So yeah, I could definitely see him being a big babyface. Not as big as his dad, size-wise, definitely bigger, but not in terms of a bigger babyface on that scale. But he could come close. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars number 9. Yeah, I thought NXT, I had a pretty good show. People were saying, oh, it was a weak show. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as strong as other weeks have been, but it was still a really good show overall. That NXT Tag Team title match was great with Undisputed Era, Keith Lee, and Dominik Dijakovic. Ciampa and Balor could have been better, but it was a good match. I would not have done it on that show, but it was a good match. Dakota Kai and Candice had a really good match. I thought that was an enjoyable part of the show. Not much about the show that I really didn't like, to be honest, except for the main event just kind of coming out of nowhere. I'm trying to think what else was on the show. Xia Li was in a match. That was kind of whatever. It was what it was. It set up the Baszler-Rhea Ripley confrontation, so it succeeded in that respect. It served the purpose. Overall, I thought it was a good show. I enjoyed it for what it was. Dynamite, I just did not enjoy. I honestly thought it was the weakest episode of Dynamite yet. The main event was mediocre as hell. I thought Jericho and Sky had a good main event, but it was not like main event material worth going out of your way to see. I never really thought that Sky was going to win the championship. I just didn't really think it was a good idea to do the match in the first place. It was good. MJF and Adam Page, the right winner with MJF going over. Feels like Adam Page has lost a lot lately, but I'm glad MJF won, but the match was like 5 minutes long. The Lucha Bros losing, I think, Best Friends. Good match, but really, really questionable result. That debut of the Bunny, the Butcher, and the Blade was fucking dumb as hell. Even RJ agreed. He texted me, I didn't watch the show live, but he was like, dude, when you see this, you're going to be like, what the fuck? And yeah, I saw it and was like, what the fuck? That was so stupid. That was a really dumb storyline. It was a dumb debut. No one gave a shit. But I did not like the show at all. The best part of the show was probably Kenny Omega and Pac. But even that, I thought their match at All Out was better. So I was not a fan of the show at all this week. And I'm glad they lost in the ratings. They deserved to lose. I know it doesn't really have to do with the quality of the show, because people will tune in, regardless. They'll only really tune in based off what's advertised and habit and stuff like that. They won't tune in it's a good show tonight. We don't know that until after it's over, But in retrospect, I'm glad NXT won because it was the superior show this week, and it usually is more often than not. They also asked, what do you make of the ratings battle regarding Friday Night SmackDown and Frosty the Snowman? I guess the Frosty the Snowman special last Friday beat SmackDown in the ratings, which is bad. SmackDown's ratings have gradually gone down. That's not good. They're doing the same ratings as Raw, and they're on Fox. Come on. I know it's Black Friday, but that's not good. It's the post-Survivor Series show. Another reason to not do an episode of SmackDown on a fucking Friday at 8 p.m. It's just really stupid. I know maybe there's a reason why they can't do it earlier on in the week, but I just don't think that's smart at all. But yeah, that's sad. I think that SmackDown itself has really just been a dull show. I wasn't a fan of last week's show. A lot of returns, notable moments. But just kind of a dull show for me personally. The show has not been must-see in a while since the NXT invasion a month ago. And RJ, I know, agrees with me because he was texting me that he has not watched the show in a month, and I don't blame him. The show has been very dull by and large since they moved to Fox. It's actually had the opposite effect. The show's been worse since they went to Fox, which blows my mind. Did you hear about Jordan Grace calling out the Sandman for the latter claiming that women main eventing is wrong in 2019? Yeah, I saw her tweet about that. Jericho responded and a few others. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. His opinion is just wrong. You want to talk about wrong. His opinion is completely outdated and stupid. Why he would even say that to someone, obviously not to her. I guess he said it to someone else in the locker room and she overheard it. Still a dumb thing to say. If that's your opinion, then keep it to your fucking self. Again, I say everyone's entitled to their own opinion. People have racist opinions, and I guess that they're entitled to those opinions too, even though they are wrong and stupid and outdated in 2019. So, I did hear about that. Just fucking dumb. Just really, really stupid. Who is the Sandman to say that it's wrong for the women to be main eventing in 2019. It's wrong for the Sandman to be fucking wrestling in 2019. His TNA stint, his Impact stint this year has sucked. The guy's had bad matches. No reason for this guy to be on TV. Shame on Impact for even bothering to bring him in. Why the fuck was he even on that show is the real question. But yeah, I heard about that and it was just stupid. Did you hear about Matt Hardy apparently getting ready to leave WWE? Yeah, I did see that. Can you blame the guy? I mean, they've done nothing with them since May. And the funny thing is that their contract had actually expired back in March when they signed on for that 2-year deal back in 2017. WWE rolled over the contract in March. And people were thinking then, like, are they going to leave? Like, they're not really doing much with Jeff. Matt's not even on TV. It seems like he's getting ready to leave. And then out of nowhere, they're brought back and they're pushed. Oh my goodness. They weren't at WrestleMania on the main card, mind you, but they did win the SmackDown Tag Team titles a few days later. They held the belts for all of like a month, never had a single match as champions, I don't think, as far as I can remember. And then what happened? Yeah, I think Jeff got hurt, and then that was it. Matt's been completely healthy this entire time. How do you not do anything with Matt Hardy? Yeah, I could see why he was out for a couple months, late last year, earlier this year. But then he's been healthy this entire time. They're not doing anything with the guy. And this was the same dude that was at the top of the business 3 years ago with the broken stuff. Like, give the Woken stuff another chance, or the you don't know how hard it is to be Matt Hardy, or Big Money Matt, something along those lines, you know? Give the guy a fucking shot. It's just fucking weird. But, yeah, I don't blame him. If he wants to leave and go back to the independent scene, so he's not, I guess he's not on the road anyway, but I don't know. I mean, it sucks because I want to see them end their careers in WWE. But, like, if that's what they had planned for him, which is nothing, then, yeah, just leave. Go back to Ring of Honor. I mean, maybe not Ring of Honor, but, like, Impact, maybe. I don't know if the Woken stuff, the broken stuff would really work with Impact in 2019, 2020, but I guess it's worth a shot. If anything, you know what? Just go to the independent scene. Just do your stuff there. It's still a big hit. He was doing his stuff on the indie scene for years after he left WWE, and he was really popular. I saw him on the indie scene as of, like, 2-3 years ago in Northeast Wrestling, and he was really popular then, too, so it might be better that he goes back to the indie scene if WWE has zero plans for the guy, which sucks because he's a creative genius. And if you have no plans for Matt Hardy, not to say he should be world champion, but if you have no plans for Matt Hardy to even use him in a mid-card role, there's something wrong there. And their last question, thoughts on the Rock and Roll Express winning the NWA Tag Team titles and NWA thanking Jim Cornette for his involvement. Yeah, that part was weird. Not to say it was bad. Like, I don't hate Jim Cornette. I think it's cool they acknowledged him. They didn't cut out his commentary or his appearance on the show while celebrating with the Rock and Roll Express. They just kind of went their separate ways. And they did have to get rid of him. He would have said something stupid at some point or another. So they had to get rid of him eventually. But anyway, they had it was a good match. Them and the Rock and Roll Express. The thank you Jim Cornette thing was weird, but hopefully we can all just move on from that now that, Into the Fire is coming up. They have Stu Bennett as his replacement. They've announced the former Wade Barrett as his replacement, which is cool. But, then the Rock and Roll Express is the tag team champions. It's cool. They have buzz right now, much more buzz than the fucking wild cards do. They appeared for AEW recently. They've been, in AEW recently. They were in Ring of Honor a couple months ago, New Japan. They've been making the rounds in wrestling. So they were in the Hall of Fame in WWE a couple years ago, in Impact, a couple months before that, making a few appearances. And they're on the indie scene. They're going to Northeast Wrestling in January. I hope to meet them then. But, I think it's a really cool moment. I'm not sure how long the reign will last. They are defending the championships at Into the Fire next weekend. So they may lose the championship on that show, I would hope not, back to the wild cards. But it was a cool moment, and they can still go even in 2019. So I'm happy they're the champions, and the match was good. And it was cool to see Jim Cornette involved in the moment just because he, has had a very, his career is synonymous with the Rock and Roll Express. So it only made sense for him to be out there celebrating with him, regardless of what his current standing is with the company. I know he's currently gone, but this was recorded a while ago. I thought it was a cool moment. Ivan the Templar, from Twitter, do you think the WWE Performance Center is producing good wrestlers at a steady rate? If so, what are some of the challenges they face in making it to the main roster? I mean, the same challenge that anyone faces, that is the other people from Ring of Honor and the indie scene and stuff like that, as good as they might be used in NXT, the main roster is a completely different beast. It doesn't matter if they come out of the PC or not. It's not that Vince has this, idea that, oh, fuck indie guys, I'll take anyone from the PC. It's not just that, because they've taken people from, it doesn't matter where you're from, PC, indie scene, whatever. Vince will ruin you all the same. Look no further than Braun Strowman. He was not an indie guy. He was a complete product of that developmental system. in WWE in the Performance Center. And he has yet to win a singles championship in WWE. Yeah, the fucking greatest Royal Rumble title does not count. He's won a lot of meaningless shit, but never like the WWE title, the Universal title, or, a mid-card title even. Like, he's won nothing aside from a few tag team titles, and that's about it. And even those reigns were over relatively quickly. Roman Reigns is a product of the system. Bianca Belair is a product of the system. Lars Sullivan is a product of the system. So they have some success stories. I mean, Lars Sullivan got hurt and hasn't been seen since. But still, I mean, I would assume that, they're going to be pushing him when he gets back. But they've done a good job of making, new stars. Don't get it twisted, though. I mean, they definitely... NXT's success largely relies on the indie people they bring in and not so much the Performance Center people. That is a part of it. But I would say it's like 80% indie people and then like 20% PC recruits. They do a good job. Like Casey Catanzaro, had she not gotten injured and whatever, she never wrestled a day in her life. She was from American Ninja Warrior, and she came in and is, from what I understand, doing really well. And then she got hurt and hasn't wrestled since. I'm not sure if she's still there with the company or not. I don't think so. She's been put in the alumni section on the website, so probably not. They don't do that for no reason. But yeah, I think they've done a good job of making talent. Not as many as they should, but enough. But the issues they face are no different than anyone else's. Vince is going to have you be as good as he wants you to be and nothing more. Some people get to be as good as they are. A lot of people don't. A lot of people do not have that luxury, unfortunately. So we will soon see how people like Bianca Belair do on the main roster. Like the Street Profits are not really... I'm not sure what Montez Ford was doing before WWE. I know he was like in the Army or something, but they are not from the indie scene. They are a product of the system. They are a product of the WWE developmental system. They haven't won any tag titles yet on the main roster, and they've gone over relatively well, so it's not really a matter of, are you from Ring of Honor or from the PC or whatever. It's just a matter of having a plan in place for these people. Vince should not be bringing up people he does not have a plan for, and they do that all too often. They had something in place years ago where they wouldn't call people up if they didn't have a plan for them, but I don't think that's been the case in many years. Why the fuck would you call up EC3 if you had no plans for the guy? Just to say you called someone up? Like, what the fuck, So, it's no different than anyone else, but they are challenges nonetheless because the main roster's tough. Just because Vince, as long as he's at the helm of the creative process in WWE, anyone and everyone, regardless of where you come from or whether you're a product of the developmental Performance Center system, you will only be as good as he wants you to be. And that's it. At Thomas_B96, as we wind down here, what is your favorite tag team match of the year from NXT? Good question. I mean, I guess if we're not counting War Games, which is technically a tag team match, I would probably say the ladder match at TakeOver 25 with Forgotten Sons, Street Profits, Lorcan and Birch, and who was the other fourth team? Undisputed Era. I was there for that match. Got to see Street Profits win. Loved the match. Loved the moment of them winning. It's a phenomenal ladder match. So probably that one. If you're asking me like favorite standard tag team match of the year, probably at that point War Raiders versus Ricochet and Black. I saw that at TakeOver. Just the show peaked with that match, and the entire show was amazing, but the show got off to a hot start with that match. It was a fucking great match. They've had a lot of other really good tag team matches this year. The matches between Undisputed Era and Street Profits were great. The Undisputed Era and War Raiders matches, the match at TakeOver Phoenix was great. Again, War Games matches were really good. They had Lee and Dijakovic versus Undisputed Era recently was really good. But probably the ladder match. If you're asking me for any tag team match in NXT, regardless of the stip or if more teams were involved, probably that one. If not that one, then the War Raiders versus Ricochet and Black at TakeOver New York, which I was there for and served as the farewell for Black and Ricochet from the NXT brand. Final question of the day comes from @CoolKidJoeXBL from Twitter. Their question was, with John Morrison announcing his signing, where do you think the best place to put him is, and who would you have his first feud be against? Well, I already mentioned this earlier, but first feud would probably be The Miz. I guess would make the most sense from how he left and their history and whatnot. And The Miz ain't doing jack shit anyway, so it's probably good for him too. I would have them team personally, but I would say SmackDown. I think NXT would be a great landing spot for him, and they could use him with Gargano out, and they need more baby faces. They have Ciampa on the babyface side, and Velveteen Dream is out injured right now, so I think he'd be a good fit for the NXT brand. It would be cool to see him down there before he gets called up to the main roster. I honestly think if they brought back McIntyre to the main roster, he would not be doing as well as he is right now if he didn't have that run in NXT first. They would have brought him back as just another dude in the roster like Jinder or whatever, Rhino, Heath Slater. Not Heath Slater, fucking Kurt Hawkins, He probably wouldn't be that low on the totem pole, but he would probably, not be as legitimate as he is currently. Because he had that run in NXT first that proved to everyone, like, wow, if you didn't watch his Impact stuff, then this guy can really go. He's great. He was awesome in NXT, and he's even better now in the main roster. So I would like to see him back in NXT first, feuding with either, a Balor or a Gargano when he's clear to compete again, or a Riddle or someone like that. I think it'd be really cool to see him in NXT. And it would also be giving him a lighter schedule, too, which he might like. But, that being said, if we're picking, ideally, probably SmackDown. SmackDown would need him more than NXT does. NXT is just fine. I think SmackDown needs the talent more, and him and Miz have a lot of unfinished business on that brand, so I think it's a good fit for him to go to the Blue brand. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 314 here today of #AskGSM. So thank you, as always, for sending in your questions. Always appreciate it. Be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM with your questions. Very much appreciate that. Find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave your question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, we'll work out the Christmas stuff as that gets closer. I still have no idea what I'm doing for that. Probably the Monday before Christmas, I'll record it and gather your questions, but I'm gone Sunday, so I'm going to have to record it Monday. I don't know. We'll figure it out as it approaches. But nonetheless, guys, again, enjoy the rest of your week/weekend if you listen to this on Friday or Saturday. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.